I'm a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
He's inside the school shooting at the gun!
Well, I had to do it because somebody had to do something.
After shooting in the theater, I didn't have a plan of whether to die or not.
Welcome back to my channel, everyone. I hope you've all been good as of late. Today I am revisiting an old video once again, to redo it with better quality. The case we are taking a look at is the 2007 SuccessTech Academy shooting, perpetrated by 14-year-old Asa Haley Coon. Before we get into this case, I'd just like to remind you guys that I have a membership that you can join if you'd like access to some perks like viewing every video 24 hours early, or having a say in some of the cases I cover each month. You can become a member by hitting the join button below, or by following the link in the description or the pinned comment. Without further ado, let's get right into the unfortunate upbringing of today's shooter. Asa Haley Coon was born on September 22, 1993, in New York. His home life was incredibly unstable and toxic. He grew up with an older brother named Steven and a twin sister named Nicole. Despite being twins, Asa and Nicole seemed to be polar opposites. Nicole was blonde, outgoing, and often opted to play outside, while Asa was dark-haired, reserved, and usually chose to sit inside and draw. Their father had very little to do with their lives. However, I couldn't find anything that pointed to when exactly he left. All I know is that he wasn't around for the kids while they grew up. At some point, the family moved from New York to Ohio, settling in Cleveland. According to many reports, both Asa and Steven physically harmed their mom multiple times as children and into their early teenage years. In fact, Steven had already been charged twice with domestic violence and assault by the age of 13 years old. According to Cleveland.com, Steven was released from prison 6 weeks before Asa committed the shooting. The release followed a 2-year sentence for burglary among multiple other charges. Needless to say, Asa did not have a solid role model to look up to. In February of 2006, at the age of 12, Asa himself was charged in juvenile court with domestic violence against his mother. According to her, Asa and his sister Nicole were in a heated argument, which she tried to break up. Asa slapped his mom in the face and called her vulgar names after she tried to intervene. In court, a magistrate instructed the family to attend counseling sessions together, and also ordered Asa to undergo psychological testing. It didn't take long for Asa to completely refuse this demand. He slammed the paperwork to the floor before barreling through his mom to get out of the room, almost knocking her to the ground in the process. Following this reaction, the magistrate instead changed his mind and ordered Asa to be sent to the Hudson Youth Development Center, a place which helped get troubled kids back on track. At the time, the center was full, so Asa was made to wait for a spot to open up. During the time that he waited, he was placed in the Jones School and Home for Friendless Children. It was here that Asa attempted to take his own life and was subsequently placed on trazodone, an antidepressant, as well as clonidine, a medication to treat high blood pressure, also sometimes used to treat ADHD. Asa spent a few days at the hospital before he was released on home detention. The family problems did not resolve during this time. In fact, they may have gotten worse. At one point, a home detention officer dropped by the house and watched as Asa and his mom screamed and cursed at each other because Asa refused to take his medication. The home detention officer made numerous notes about the family's living situation. The neighborhood was apparently well known for drug trafficking and gang activity. He also noted that the family's front yard was littered in trash and dog feces. Not even a month after Asa's failed suicide attempt, he was suspended from his middle school for 10 days following an attempt to harm another student. One of his teachers from this school later stated that Asa definitely had some issues during this time in his life, citing multiple instances of him getting bullied by other kids. Moving on, Asa was attending counseling sessions and anger management classes, both of which he reportedly completed in late 2006. He also finished up the community service that he was obligated to do and was finally released from probation. According to Asa's uncle Larry, Asa had been working to get into SuccessTech Academy, an alternative high school that put an emphasis on teaching kids about technology and entrepreneurship. Asa made sure to get good grades and ended up meeting the requirements to go to SuccessTech Academy. He went on to attend the school during his freshman year. Larry said that Asa was excited to have a fresh start, hopeful to move away from the bullying he had endured in the past. Larry stated, quote, "He wanted to go to a school where he didn't get bullied, where he could learn. He liked to have sophisticated conversations with people. He was way beyond his years," unquote. Students that went to school with Asa described him as odd. He would wear all black, often including black nail polish. His usual attire consisted of black band t-shirts, black skinny jeans, chains, and a black trench coat. I read that he even wore a dog collar sometimes. Needless to say, anyone presenting themselves in this way is most likely going to be ridiculed by kids at school, and Asa was no exception. According to multiple sources, Asa was not known to react to bullying, especially when he was in middle school. That started to change in the year leading up to the shooting, when he began to fight back against his bullies. Though he was impulsive and would sometimes lash out in a violent manner, Asa was remembered to have been exceptionally smart. According to some of his friends, he would talk about one day being a part of a space program, or maybe even joining the FBI. Asa was able to build magnificent structures out of paper clips, and was even said to have liked to take apart appliances and put them back together for fun. Apparently, Asa had even won a citywide chess tournament in the recent past. A family friend of the Coons said, quote, "As long as he was busy with his hands, he was cool, but when he was bored, he would lash out," unquote. A girl who lived near the family, Rachel Metzger, recalled Asa's frequent concerning behavior, stating, quote, "He's a very hyper kid. He's constantly yelling at his mom or anybody else. He's pretty violent," unquote. According to CBSNews.com, police had been to the Coon residence at least 5 separate times since 2006. They responded to calls of domestic violence, assault, a property crime, and even a hit-and-run accident. On Monday, October 8, 2007, Asa and a fellow student got into an argument at school about the existence of God. Apparently, Asa said he didn't respect or believe in God. Instead, he worshipped only the rock star, Marilyn Manson. This prompted an argument between the two, which later turned physical. The two of them got into a fight after school, which was enough to get Asa and the other student suspended for a few days. According to Cleveland.com, Asa warned the student after their fight, saying, quote, "I'm going to get you. I will get you," unquote. Threats made by Asa were nothing new, as he had apparently spoken about shooting the school up to his friends even prior to the fight. It was known that Asa had access to firearms. It's important to note that Asa's brother, Stephen, later stated that he has no idea where Asa acquired the guns. It's widely believed that he obtained them illegally, since there is absolutely no record of where they came from. There are numerous other reports of Asa making some pretty scary threats. Students later recalled that Asa even once made a bomb threat to the school, to which the teachers apparently completely ignored. Now, let's move on to the main events of today's case. From this point forward, I will be referring to Asa as Coon. On the morning of Wednesday, October 10th, 2007, Coon made himself breakfast before filling a duffel bag with a .22 caliber revolver, a .38 caliber revolver, a box of rounds containing both types of ammunition, and 3 folding knives. Coon then left the house and made his way to SuccessTech Academy, where he had just been suspended from a few days prior. It was never confirmed exactly how Coon got into the building, but it is reported that he made entry shortly before 1 p.m. He definitely didn't enter through the front door, and he apparently wasn't caught entering the building on any of the 26 security cameras. So, many theorized that he was led in one of the back entrances by a friend. Internal security cameras show Coon walking around in a white hoodie, concealing his face. Coon walked around the school for a bit, eventually landing on the 4th floor of the building, stopping into the boys' restroom. Inside of the restroom, Coon discarded his hoodie, hat, and duffel bag on the floor. He then loaded and armed himself with a revolver in each hand before leaving. Upon exiting the restroom, Coon ran straight into 14-year-old Michael Peak. After getting bumped into, Michael punched Coon in the face before walking off. It was then that Coon decided to begin his attack. He aimed one of his revolvers and shot Michael in the abdomen. All hell broke loose, and students began frantically running away from the scene in all directions. David Kakadurian, who had Coon in one of his math classes, was busy teaching his students when multiple loud popping sounds came from the hallway. According to David, at first, he and his class thought nothing of the noise, but as students began running down the hallway while screaming at the top of their lungs, panic set in. Another student, 18-year-old Darnell Rogers, was making his way up a nearby stairwell when the shooting began. Suddenly, a flood of students poured into the stairwell and rushed down the stairs. As they passed Darnell, he remembers hearing them screaming, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" Darnell continued to climb the stairs, later stating that he thought the others were just running from a fight that was taking place. Once he reached the 4th floor, Darnell was met with Coon, who, without saying a word, shot him below the elbow on his right arm. Coon then moved on, continuing down the 4th floor hallways. Darnell later said, quote, "It took me a couple of minutes to realize that I was actually shot. When I felt my arm burning in the area, that's when I realized that I had got shot," unquote. While huge groups of students were fleeing the scene, many opted to hide instead. Some stayed hidden under tables in nearby classrooms, watching as Coon walked down the hallways. Several reports from students that took cover nearby state that Coon was swearing continuously while roaming around. Coon made his way into a social studies classroom, taught by Michael Grassi. Coon swore at him, aimed one of his revolvers, and shot him square in the chest. Michael later stated, quote, "I looked down and saw the hole in my shirt and the blood coming out," unquote. Very fortunately, the bullet barely missed Michael's heart, instead ripping through his body just below it. David Kakadorian, the teacher from before, was now in the hallway rushing to evacuate his students when Coon approached him from behind. In a later interview, David stated, quote, "As the kids were going down the stairs, I went to the doorway to the stairwell, and at that point, there was another pop, and I felt something in my back that felt like I would imagine a paintball to feel. It's sort of a heavy hit, pressure, but not like what you would expect from a gun," unquote. He had been shot in the upper back. David then fled down the stairs along with the remaining students, grabbed them, and hid in a storage closet. Coon continued to walk around the 4th floor, still cursing, and eventually made his way into a deserted classroom. There, he watched out of the window as responding officers raced into the building. Authorities moved through the school, up to the floor that they believed Coon to be on. Police cautiously cleared the rooms, finally making it to the classroom which Coon was in. Upon entry, they found Coon deceased on the floor, with a large pool of blood surrounding his head. He had shot himself before police were able to apprehend him. In all, the shooting lasted less than 90 seconds from the time Coon left the restroom to the time he ended his own life. A quick little interjection here. After the initial discovery of his death, a Cleveland police officer took and sent a photo of Coon's dead body to a few people he knew. Eventually, it was leaked to the internet, where it still resides. The officer was subsequently suspended for about a week due to his actions. Anyway, outside of the school, students were huddled in groups across the street, terrified about what was going on. Parents began to show up and were anxiously waiting to be reunited with their kids. Students were interviewed outside about Coon's previous threats. Damar Tab said, quote, "I thought he was just kidding. I probably should have said something, but I didn't think anything would actually happen," unquote. Another student, Rasheem Smith, corroborated Damar's statement, saying, quote, "He was talking about doing it last week. We talked to the principal. She would try to get us all in the office, but it would always be too busy for it to happen," unquote. All 4 people who were shot were rushed to the hospital, and I am happy to report that they all recovered from their wounds. Darnell was the first to heal, since his wound was not as critical. The other 3 victims had to stay in the hospital a bit longer. A third student was wounded after being trampled by her terrified peers in their attempts to escape the attack. She thankfully didn't suffer any severe injuries. There are suspicions that Coon was on a mission to kill specific victims, with many speculating that his targets were the teachers in particular. Coon's uncle, Larry, later stated that he was indeed upset with his teachers, because they had apparently shut him down when he tried to explain his side of the story regarding the recent fight he was in. Larry insists that despite Coon attending a school where the majority of students were black, the attack was not racially motivated. According to Larry, the few friends that Coon did have were black, so he doesn't believe race played any part in his attack plan. To this day, Coon's exact motives remain unclear. There are many theories out there, but with no solid proof to back any of them, it's hard to say what Coon's reasoning was. Following the attack, there was a push to increase security in Cleveland schools. While Coon's school did implement the use of metal detectors prior to the shooting, they were not operated every day like they should have been. The school also employed a security guard at the front door, but since Coon didn't enter the building this way, there wasn't much that the guard could do. I also read that the school had recently eliminated another security guard position, who would normally have been stationed on the 3rd floor. Even if this guard was still there, it's hard to know if it would have made a difference. According to Cleveland19.com, a revised security plan was submitted to Mayor Frank Jackson, which included a request to put metal detectors and security personnel in every single school in Cleveland. Since the shooting, both of the teachers who were shot have gone down opposite paths. Michael Grassi apparently never stepped foot into a classroom again. He later said, quote, "I'm still trying to process it. I was a teacher. It was my identity. I can never do it again. This has devastated my life." Unquote. Michael went on to say that he would never be able to trust his students again, never able to turn his back on them without worrying if he would be attacked. David Kakadorian, on the other hand, went on to teach at a different school following the attack. He reportedly explains to his new students each year what he went through. According to Cleveland.com, his goal is to urge his students to create a safe and caring community within the school. This isn't to say that David did not have lasting effects from his traumatic experience. Months after the shooting, David heard a loud bang while teaching a class that immediately sent him into a panic. He was set on calling the police before he realized the noise had come from a student stomping on a milk carton. David later stated that he harbored a lot of anger following the shooting, but not towards Coon. He said, quote, "I felt so sorry for him to be so alone and so desperate," unquote. He then went on to express guilt surrounding the situation. Quote, "What if I had reached out more to him? Maybe it wouldn't have happened," unquote. Coon had inflicted pain and trauma like he was hoping to do, but in the end, he was the only casualty of his rampage. I wish more shootings would end this way, with no innocent lives taken. I'd like to know what your thoughts and opinions are on this case. I find Coon's upbringing to be very depressing, and it leaves me wondering how he would have turned out had he been born into a different situation. Obviously, there is still no excuse for inflicting harm on random people. Though no lives were taken, it was still an extremely traumatic event for many to go through, so it isn't exactly a victimless crime. I sincerely hope that those affected by this incident were able to move on from it and live their lives to the fullest. Please keep those affected by this shooting in your thoughts. Thank you guys for sticking around for this shorter video. I hope that you found it to be informative. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe.